And he was in some ways, a chatty sort of person. I mean, he liked to talk, he liked people.
The man who served as departmental head to both Whitlam and Fraser now reveals startling information which suggests this first meeting was a turning point.
The Governor-General had indicated to Mr. Fraser that he had the threat of dismissal hanging over him, and that if he showed his hand to Mr. Whitlam, that he would be dismissed. And I think that, and whilst the Governor-General may have not spelled out to Mr. Fraser precisely what action he had in mind, I think that was sufficient indication that anyone would need that the Governor-General's decision or action would be unacceptable to Mr. Whitlam.
That would have been a very significant remark to make to Mr. Fraser.
That's right, yes. And it was made.
So these comments that you've made to us about Sir John Kerr's concerns, the concerns that Sir John Kerr conveyed to Mr. Fraser told you about this discussion?
Yes.
So you did feel during the crisis that the Governor-General was in fact under threat from the Prime Minister?
Yes, I did.
Did you gain this impression from your talks with Sir John, from the way he acted, from signals he gave?
No, not at all. Just from a judgment of the circumstances and a judgment of the people on the stage.
The then head of the Prime Minister's Department, John Menadue, says that after the dismissal, in a discussion with you, you indicated that during your talks with Sir John Kerr during the crisis, the Governor-General did in fact indicate to you that he was concerned that the Prime Minister might move against him.
No. Didn't happen.
Are you quite certain about this? Because, as I understand it, John Menadue did record a note for file after this discussion with you, which was held on the 28th of January 1976.
Well, he's got an advantage over me then, because I never recorded notes for file. My memory of these events is generally pretty good, but maybe John Menadue misunderstood the conversation he'd had with me.
After this meeting, Fraser changed his public stance towards Kerr. He became deferential.
Of course we'd accept the Governor-General's decision. It'd be utterly wrong to do anything else.
But Whitlam remained convinced that Kerr was with him. He refused to consider dismissal as a serious option throughout the crisis.
What consideration was given to the possibility that Kerr might dismiss Whitlam?
Almost none. In fact, I would say it was never a factor in our assessment of either the strategy or the likely outcome of the situation.
They never understood it, which was very, very sad. And there was a failure, in my view, to impress upon the bureaucracy and the other advisors, very gifted people like Graham Freudenberg and so on, what the legal character of the circumstances was. Because if you didn't understand that, you didn't understand the political character. And if you didn't understand the political character, you would lose.
In the hundreds of divisions which have taken place in the House of Representatives last year and this year, the Labor government has never been defeated.
Whitlam's confidence was driven by the tide of public opinion, which was hostile to Fraser's blocking of the budget. Whitlam gambled everything on the opposition losing its nerve. He needed only one senator to cross the floor.
How confident were you during the crisis that the opposition would in fact prevail?
Well, I mean, depending on which time of day you ask me that question. I mean, you had 30 people up here, of which you could say 2/3 were rock solid, you forget about them. But there were about 10 others, I suppose, about a third of them, who came and went. You know, well, they didn't go totally, but they had worries. They had all sorts of worries. Mainly, of course, that what we were doing, we wouldn't get away with in the public mind.
As the crisis entered its third week, the focus shifted to Melbourne and the festivities surrounding the Melbourne Cup. Federal and state Liberal and Country Party leaders held a summit meeting at Treasury Place. They took two decisions: to stand firm and to offer a tactical concession. The next day, Fraser saw the Governor-General and offered to pass the budget immediately if Whitlam agreed to a general election before the middle of 1976.
We put it forward in good faith, and if he'd accepted it, there would have been no dismissal.
I think it's an indication of how obsessed, I think it's probably the word, Whitlam had become, because the proposition was a very reasonable one.
30 minutes after Fraser left, Kerr saw Whitlam at Government House, Melbourne. The Prime Minister rejected the Fraser compromise out of hand. Whitlam was chasing a total victory, but Kerr claims that Whitlam then resorted to provocative intimidation.
Gough said to John, the only way that I will call an election is if you do a Phillip game on me. By which he meant, well, you'll have to use your reserve powers to sack me. And what he really meant was, and of course you haven't got the guts to do it. That was the significance of what he was saying. But of course John did have the guts to do it.
Now, Kerr says, in defence of himself in his book, that during the talks he had with you in the crisis, you indicated to Kerr that the only way he could obtain an election would be to do a game. Did you say that?
No, I did not. I know he's written that.
But Gough, that is your phrase, isn't it? Do a game. I mean,
no, I think he used it to Hayden, didn't he? He used that phrase to Hayden.
But I think I've heard you use this phrase yourself.
Well, I never used it to him. I must have used it subsequently.
Still supremely confident of Kerr, Whitlam now looked for ways to intensify the pressure on Fraser.
One solution that Gough Whitlam flirted with was a Senate election. Now, Fraser knew that. That's why he wanted the Liberal and Country Party premiers to advise their governors not to issue the writs for such an election. Two questions flowed from this. Would the premiers agree to sabotage a Senate election? And would the state governors acquiesce?
My view would have been that it was wrong. I would have told Tom Lewis that I thought it was wrong and given him my reasons for saying that. And if he insisted that I should comply with his advice, well, as I say, I would have sent it to the Queen saying I couldn't give assent or agreement and give my views, plus a letter of resignation.
I would have had severe doubts about agreeing to it, but as I said, it never came to the point.
On Cup Eve, there was a dinner at Government House, Melbourne, hosted by the Victorian Governor, Sir Henry Winnicky.
Sir Henry Winnicky talked a great deal, and finally Sir John Kerr, who was not showing that much interest in the conversation, got up and said to me, well, at least I think it's time we went to bed. And as we went up the stairs, he said, Henry Winnicky doesn't understand the problem.
Sir Henry Winnicky, who was always a positive man anyway and with strong opinions, he made it clear to me that he thought that Sir John Kerr had not acted correctly, that he should have consulted Whitlam, even presumably at the cost of Mr. Whitlam trying to get him dismissed.
I think a Governor-General or a governor should never be worried about the security of their job. I think that's always on the line. And I think Sir John Kerr was not really prepared to put that on the line. I think he intentionally meant to deceive Whitlam. and not give him any indication of what he might do.
At the 100, and White going for home on Think Big. Holiday Wagons the threat from Medici, but Think Big's going to win his second Melbourne Cup.
I'm presenting it, of course, under circumstances where the horse is the same, the jockey is the same, and thank goodness the Governor-General is the same.
After the Cup, Kerr returned to Canberra, the pressure closing upon him. Neither Whitlam nor Fraser would back off. On the 6th of November, Kerr conducted his last consultations with the leaders. Fraser now turned up the pressure to get an election.
I made it quite clear that in those circumstances I would have to say that the Governor-General had let down not only the office of Governor-General, but the people of Australia, because in many ways he holds that office and is custodian of the reserve powers.
He was under pressure from Fraser, who was threatening virtually, this is what John said, virtually to denounce him as a Labor Party stooge.
But at this meeting, in effect, you were really advising him that he should dismiss Mr. Whitlam.
Well, I wouldn't have put it in those terms. I would have said if there is not an election, we'll, have to say something about it.
Fraser, can you tell us anything about your meeting with the Governor-General?
No, I couldn't on other occasions, and I can't on this occasion.
Is your stand still firm about blocking supply?
Of course it is.
Did he give you any advice?
Malcolm Fraser returned from Yarralumla, convinced he would prevail. I saw both leaders later that day. Fraser told me that the crisis would be resolved by Kerr's dismissal of the Prime Minister. But Whitlam assured me that Kerr was rock solid. The Governor-General now began serious preparations for the dismissal, and he was intent on keeping his plan a secret from Whitlam.
I can remember several little incidents that in which he deliberately, I believe, set out to convince me that that was not even on his mind. And I think that was dishonourable. He used me, an old friend, in order to lull Whitlam into a false sense of security. That's why I've been critic, why I never forgave him.
The whole essence of the enterprise was surprise. It was ambush. And it was ambush, weird notion, it was ambush in the centres of power.
Why didn't Kerr properly consult and warn you?
I don't know. I mean, let's face it, he was a weak man and a deceptive man and a dishonourable man.
It's quite true, John did not tell him what he was going to do. The reason for that we've already touched on, because John was convinced, I think rightly, that as soon as Gough was sure that the reserve powers were going to be exercised to dismiss him as Prime Minister, then he would have gone straight to the Queen. John's view, as I've said, was that that would have been a disaster, but moreover, he felt no obligation to tell Gough, one of the two contending parties, what his stream of thought was. And indeed, there was no obligation. So he didn't mislead him at all. Gough misled himself.
But some people predicted the dismissal